Welcome back to the AI Daily Brief Headlines Edition, all the daily AI news you need in around 5 minutes. We kick off today with some interesting information from Stripe. The payments processor is seeing a boom in AI applications that dwarfs the growth of SaaS. They wrote, "We're seeing an AI boom on Stripe. Our 2024 data shows these startups are building business at a record pace." In their annual community letter, Stripe compared the growth of the top 100 AI startups last year to the top 100 SaaS startups in 2018, which was the peak of the SaaS boom. They found the AI companies are taking 24 months on average to hit $5 million in annualized revenue, outpacing their SaaS counterparts by more than a year. Stripe highlighted coding assistance as a particularly strong vertical. Cursor was the standout product, hitting $100 million in recurring revenue over 3 years. But competitors Lovable and Bolt also reached around $20 million in recurring revenue in a matter of a few months. Stripe wrote, "Much as SaaS started horizontal and then went vertical, we're seeing a similar dynamic play out in AI. We started with ChatGPT, but are now seeing a proliferation of industry-specific tools. Some people," they wrote, "have called these startups LLM wrappers. Those people are missing the point. The O-ring model in economics shows that in a process with interdependent tasks, the overall output or productivity is limited by the least effective component, not just in terms of cost, but in the success of the entire system. In a similar vein, we see these new industry-specific AI tools as ensuring that individual industries can properly realize the economic impact of LLMs, and that the contextual data and workflow integration will prove enduringly valuable." Lightspeed's Justin Overdorf writes, "VCs have been talking about revenue acceleration in the AI economy. Stripe has the data to back it up." Bryce Bladen writes, "This Stripe report is the first time I've seen real numbers tied to real revenue for AI companies, and my lord, outpacing 2018 SaaS in 66% of the time is wild." Next up, some news from Meta. The company is planning to launch a standalone app for their AI assistant. According to CNBC reporting, the app will debut in the second quarter and is aimed at competing more directly with ChatGPT. Meta will also test a paid subscription for Meta AI for access to more powerful models and advanced features. The news comes after CEO Mark Zuckerberg announced an ambitious goal for the company. During January's earnings call, he said, "This is going to be the year when a highly intelligent and personalized AI assistant reaches more than 1 billion people, and I expect Meta AI to be that leading assistant." Now, currently, Meta AI already claims 700 million monthly active users, but that is of course largely due to its integration across Meta's social platforms. This will be a big test to see if Meta AI can stand on its own as an individually useful product. Never one to miss an opportunity, Sam Altman retweeted the news and said, "Okay, fine, maybe we'll do a social app." Speaking of Meta, the company has tapped Apollo Global Management for $35 billion in financing for their data center build-out. Bloomberg sources claim talks are in an early stage, but the funding, if it goes through, would go a long way to financing the next stage of Meta's infrastructure plans. The company is committed to spending $65 billion in total capex this year and is rumored to be exploring construction of a new $200 billion data center campus. Debt financing is also an emerging trend for big tech companies as they push data center spending into the trillions. Project Stargate is reportedly looking into a project financing model that uses projected data center revenue as collateral. This funding technique is more typically used for oil and gas projects, but is increasingly being used to finance data centers as well. For Meta specifically, debt financing is a relatively new strategy. For most of its history, the company basically carried no debt as it pursued capital-light social media and advertising verticals. However, in 2022, Meta took on billions of dollars in debt in order to fund ambitious new AI infrastructure projects. The company has around $30 billion in outstanding debt as of the end of last year, so this rumored financing deal would double their liabilities. Lastly today, an interesting one from the world of geopolitics and AI. Microsoft has urged the Trump administration to wind back chip export controls aimed at limiting Chinese imports through third countries. In the final days of the Biden presidency, the administration introduced a new global framework called the AI Diffusion Rule. The rule applied different levels of restriction across 3 tiers of countries. Close U.S. allies remained unrestricted, while tough limits were applied to adversaries like China and Iran. The big change was volume limits and supply chain monitoring for Tier 2 countries, which included India, Israel, and Switzerland. For the first time, the new export restrictions applied to AI models, not just hardware. Microsoft is arguing that this framework could backfire and push middle-tier countries into sourcing AI technology from China. Microsoft President Brad Smith wrote, "The message is these countries can't rely on the US, but China is willing to provide what they need. That's not good for American business or American foreign policy." In his blog post, Smith discussed a recent trip to Poland for the groundbreaking ceremony on a $700 million data center project. He wrote, "The irony could not be clearer. At the very moment when the Trump administration is pressing Europe to buy more American goods, the Biden diffusion rule leaves the leaders of partners like Poland asking why they've been regulated to Tier 2 status and an uncertain ability to buy more American AI chips in the future." Smith urged the Trump administration to simplify the, quote, overly complex rule and, quote, stop relegating American friends and allies into a second tier that undermines their confidence in ongoing access to American products. The Wall Street Journal writes, the request from Microsoft highlights the challenge Trump faces trying to enact pro-business policies while also looking tough on China. Interesting stuff out here in AI geopolitics, but for now, that is going to do it for the AI Daily Brief Headlines Edition. Next up, the main episode.